She was a struggling waitress working double shifts to survive. He claimed to be just another guy in hospitality. A radio contest brought them together for one magical night, but some secrets are too dangerous to keep.
You never really talk about your work. Those aren't exactly department store clothes.
I just like nice things. Is that a crime?
What started as a fairy tale romance became a web of lies when she discovered the truth. He wasn't just wealthy, he was Charleston royalty, heir to a hotel empire.
You've been pretending to be someone you're not this whole time.
I wanted you to know me, the real me, not the Easton name.
But when the past finally caught up with them, they would discover that some connections run deeper than love, and some truths can destroy everything. Will their hearts survive a revelation that changes everything they thought they knew about each other? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning light peeked through the worn curtains of Zariah Moore's small apartment in Charleston. At 26, Zariah had already lived a lifetime of responsibility. She rubbed her tired eyes and glanced at the clock, 6:30 a.m. Time to get her 14-year-old brother Marcus ready for school before her shift at Joe's diner. "Marcus," she called, knocking on his bedroom door. "Time to get up. You've got that math test today." Zariah moved to the kitchen, her movements automatic after 4 years of this routine. 4 years since their mother's heart had suddenly stopped, leaving Zariah to become both sister and mother to Marcus. 4 years of double shifts, budget cuts, and putting dreams on hold. As she scrambled eggs, Marcus appeared, his school uniform wrinkled but complete. "I ironed that yesterday," Zariah said, sliding a plate of eggs toward him. "Sorry," Marcus mumbled, still half asleep. "I fell asleep studying." Zariah's face softened. "That's good. You're going to ace that test." "You working late again tonight?" Marcus asked between bites. "Just till 9. Mrs. Johnson next door will check on you. There's leftover chicken in the fridge." Marcus nodded, used to the routine. "I can take care of myself, you know. I'm not a baby." "I know you're not," Zariah said, ruffling his hair, "but you're still my responsibility." After dropping Marcus at school, Zariah arrived at Joe's diner. The small family-run restaurant had been her workplace for 6 years. It wasn't glamorous, but Joe and his wife treated her well, and the regulars tipped decent. "Morning, sunshine," called Tanya, Zariah's best friend since high school and fellow waitress. Her bright pink lipstick contrasted with her dark skin and matched her vibrant personality. "Nothing sunny about another Tuesday," Zariah replied, tying her apron around her waist. "Girl, you need some excitement in your life," Tanya said, refilling coffee cups. "When's the last time you went on a date?" Zariah rolled her eyes. "Between Marcus and this place, when would I have time?" "You make time for what matters," Tanya insisted, "and finding someone to love matters." "Love is a luxury I can't afford right now," Zariah said, ending the conversation as she greeted her first customers. The day passed like any other, serving food, wiping tables, counting tips. By the time evening rolled around, Zariah's feet ached, and her smile had grown mechanical. During her break, she sat in the back room while the radio played in the background. She was halfway through her sandwich when the DJ's voice caught her attention. "It's that time, Charleston. Our annual Valentine's Day dinner with a mysterious man contest. One lucky lady will win a night out with one of Charleston's most eligible bachelors. We can't tell you who he is. That's why he's mysterious. But we can promise a 5-star dinner, a paid ride to and from, and even childcare if needed. Call now to enter." Zariah shook her head and returned to her sandwich. "Did you hear that?" Tanya burst into the break room, eyes wide with excitement. "That contest is perfect for you." "Not interested," Zariah said flatly. "Come on, free dinner, free ride, free childcare for Marcus. What's not to like? The part where I have to make small talk with some stranger? No thanks." Tanya put her hands on her hips. "Zariah Moore, you are 26 going on 80. You need this." "What I need is to finish my break in peace," Zariah countered. The following day, Zariah was serving a table of businessmen when Tanya approached, practically bouncing. "Guess who just got a call from WCHS radio?" Tanya's smile threatened to split her face. Zariah's stomach dropped. "You didn't." "I did. I entered your name yesterday and you won. You're having dinner with the mysterious man on Valentine's Day." "Tanya," Zariah hissed, pulling her friend away from customers. "How could you do that without asking me?" "Because you would have said no, and you need this, Zariah. One night to feel special, to be a woman, not just a provider." Zariah wanted to be angry, but the genuine concern in Tanya's eyes made it difficult. "I can't," she said softly. "Marcus, childcare is included," Tanya reminded her, "and it's just one dinner. If he's awful, you never have to see him again. After a week of Tanya's pleading and Marcus's surprising encouragement, you need friends your own age, sis. Zariah reluctantly agreed. The radio station called with details. A car would pick her up at 7 p.m. on Valentine's Day and take her to Harbor View restaurant on the waterfront. Valentine's Day arrived cold but clear. Zariah stood in front of her small closet, realizing she owned nothing appropriate for a fancy restaurant. "Wear this," Tanya said, arriving with a garment bag. Inside was a simple but elegant navy blue dress. "It's not too much, but it'll make your eyes pop." "I can't take this," Zariah protested. "It's a loan," Tanya insisted. "And I brought makeup. Sit down." An hour later, Zariah barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress hugged her curves, and Tanya had swept her normally pulled-back hair into loose curls that framed her face. Simple gold earrings and light makeup completed the transformation. "You look beautiful," Marcus said from the doorway, surprising both women with his sincerity. "The sitter will be here any minute," Zariah said, suddenly nervous. "There's money for pizza on the counter and my cell phone will be turned off because you're enjoying yourself," Tanya finished, handing Zariah a small purse. "Everything you need is in here. Now go have fun." The car arrived exactly at 7, a sleek black sedan with a professional driver who opened the door for her. Zariah felt awkward with the treatment, but reminded herself it was just for one night. Harbor View restaurant was perched at the edge of the harbor, its windows offering a panoramic view of boats and moonlit water. As the hostess led Zariah to a secluded table by the window, she felt increasingly out of place among the wealthy diners. "Your companion will arrive shortly," the hostess said with a smile, leaving Zariah alone with her thoughts. 10 minutes later, Zariah was considering leaving when a voice broke into her thoughts. "I'm sorry I'm late." She looked up to see a tall man with warm brown eyes and a hesitant smile. He wore a well-tailored suit that highlighted his broad shoulders, but it was his expression, a mixture of apology and genuine interest, that caught her attention. "The traffic was terrible," he continued, taking the seat across from her. "I'm Jude." "Zariah," she replied, extending her hand formally. His handshake was firm but gentle. "It's nice to meet you, Zariah. I have to admit I was nervous about this whole mysterious man thing." His honesty surprised her. "You were nervous? I thought this was your idea." Jude laughed, the sound warm and rich. "Hardly. My friend works at the radio station. He thought it would be good for me to meet new people." His words, not mine. "My friend entered me without asking," Zariah admitted with a small smile. "She thinks I need a life." "And do you? Need a life, I mean." His question was direct but not intrusive. Zariah considered him for a moment. "I have a life, it's just full of responsibilities." "I understand that," Jude said, his expression serious. "Sometimes responsibilities don't leave room for much else." The waiter appeared then, offering menus and wine. As they ordered, Zariah noticed how Jude spoke to the waiter with respect, not the dismissive tone she often saw from wealthy customers at the diner. "So," Jude said once they were alone again, "tell me about these responsibilities that fill your life." Something about his genuine interest made Zariah open up. She told him about Marcus, about losing their mother, about juggling work and being a guardian. She didn't mention money problems or how tired she sometimes felt, but he seemed to hear the unspoken anyway. "That's a lot for someone your age," he said softly. "You must love your brother very much." "He's all I have," Zariah replied simply. "What about you? What fills your life?" A shadow crossed Jude's face. "Work, mostly. Family obligations. Nothing as meaningful as what you're doing." "What kind of work do you do?" she asked, suddenly realizing she knew nothing about this man. Jude hesitated. "I work in hospitality. Management, really. It's not very exciting." "Is it what you wanted to do?" His smile turned sad. "It's what was expected." The conversation flowed easily after that. Jude asked questions about her life, genuinely listening to her answers. He told stories that made her laugh, about college mishaps and travel adventures, but remained vague about his family and work. By dessert, Zariah realized she was having fun for the first time in years. The weight of responsibility had lifted for a few hours, and she felt like a normal 26-year-old woman enjoying a date. "I've talked too much," she said, embarrassed by how much she'd shared. "I like listening to you," Jude replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're real. Do you know how rare that is?" After dinner, he suggested a walk along the harbor. The February air was cold, but Jude offered his jacket, draping it gently around her shoulders. "Tell me something you want," he said as they walked. "Something just for you, not for Marcus or anyone else." The question caught her off guard. I don't know. I don't think about that much. Everyone wants something, he pressed gently. Zariah stopped, looking out at the water. I want to finish college someday. I was studying nursing when Mom died. I had to drop out to care for Marcus and work full-time. That's a good dream, Jude said quietly. Why nursing? I like helping people, making a difference. She turned to him. What about you? What do you want? Jude's expression grew distant. Freedom, I suppose, to make my own choices. Aren't you already doing that? He didn't answer directly. Some choices come with consequences I'm not sure I'm ready to face. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached the end of the pier. The moon reflected off the water, casting everything in silver light. I should probably get home, Zariah said reluctantly. Marcus will be waiting up, even though I told him not to. Of course, Jude said, though he seemed disappointed. As they turned to head back, he asked, Could I call you sometime? Maybe we could do this again. Zariah hesitated. This night had been magical, but reality was waiting. I don't know if that's a good idea. Because of your responsibilities? Because this isn't real life, she said honestly. This was a contest, a fantasy night. Tomorrow I go back to serving coffee and helping with homework. And if I want to be part of that real life? Jude's voice was low, serious. Something fluttered in Zariah's chest. You don't even know me. I'd like to, he said simply. Against her better judgment, Zariah found herself giving him her number. The drive home was a blur, her mind replaying the evening, his laugh, his eyes, the way he listened like every word mattered. Marcus was indeed waiting up, full of questions about the mystery man. Zariah answered vaguely, not wanting to build up something that might never happen again. But the next evening, as she cleared tables at the diner, her phone buzzed with a text. I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Would you have dinner with me again? No contest this time. Just me asking. Zariah stared at the message, a smile spreading across her face despite her best efforts to remain practical. Who's that? Tanya asked, peering over her shoulder. Is that him? The mystery man? His name is Jude, Zariah said, still looking at the phone. And? Are you going to see him again? Zariah thought about his kind eyes, his genuine interest, the way he made her feel seen for the first time in years. Maybe, she said, but she was already typing yes. What Zariah didn't know was that across town, in a penthouse office overlooking the harbor, Jude Easton was being confronted by his mother, Elaine Easton, a woman whose cold elegance masked an iron will. The board meeting is tomorrow, Elaine reminded him, placing a folder on his desk. And Alexandra will be at the charity gala this weekend. Her father's banking connections would be very useful to us. Jude barely looked up from his computer. I've told you, Mother, I'm not interested in Alexandra. This isn't about interest, Jude. It's about securing the future of Eastern Hotels. She paused, studying her son. You seem distracted lately. Is something going on I should know about? Jude thought of Zariah, her genuine smile, her strength, her complete unawareness of who he really was. For the first time in his life, someone was getting to know him as just Jude, not as the heir to the Eastern fortune. Nothing important, he lied, knowing his mother would never understand. After Elaine left, Jude stared at his phone, reading Zariah's simple yes again. He knew he should tell her the truth about who he was, but not yet. Not when she was just starting to see him as a person rather than a bank account. Just a little longer, he told himself. Just a few more chances to be normal. What he didn't realize was that secrets in Charleston had a way of revealing themselves at the worst possible moments, and some secrets went back further than he could imagine, all the way to a connection between the Easton family and Zariah's mother that would soon turn both their worlds upside down. Over the next few weeks, Zariah found herself living in two different worlds. There was her normal life, early mornings getting Marcus ready for school, long shifts at the diner, bills piling up on the kitchen table. Then there was her time with Jude, evening walks along the harbor, late-night phone calls, and a growing feeling that maybe, just maybe, she deserved happiness too. Their second date had been simpler than the first, a quiet dinner at a small Italian restaurant where they sat in a corner booth and talked for hours. Jude asked about her childhood, and Zariah surprised herself by sharing memories she hadn't revisited in years. My mom used to sing while she cooked, she told him, smiling at the memory. She had the most beautiful voice. She could have been a professional, but she always said Marcus and I were her greatest audience. She sounds wonderful, Jude said, his eyes warm. You have her smile. Zariah looked down, emotion catching in her throat. How would you know that? Because it lights up the room. I'm sure hers did too. On their third date, Jude took her to a community theater production. It wasn't fancy, but Zariah appreciated that he seemed to understand her discomfort with obviously expensive outings. Afterward, walking her to her door, he finally kissed her, a gentle touch of his lips that left her breathless. "I should go," he whispered against her mouth. "You should," she agreed, but neither moved. "Is Marcus home?" Jude asked. "Sleeping at a friend's tonight. School project." Something changed in Jude's eyes, a hunger that matched what Zariah felt herself. When he kissed her again, there was nothing gentle about it. His hands cupped her face as if she were precious, even as his body pressed hers against the door. "Do you want to come in?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. That night, in her small bedroom with its faded curtains and second-hand furniture, Zariah let herself be vulnerable in a way she hadn't allowed since her mother died. Jude's touch was reverent, his eyes never leaving hers as they moved together. Afterward, lying in his arms, she felt a dangerous hope blooming in her chest. "Stay," she whispered, as he kissed her forehead. "I wish I could," he said, genuine regret in his voice. "I have an early meeting." As he dressed, Zariah noticed the quality of his clothes, the watch he slipped back onto his wrist, the subtle designer label on his shirt. Little things that had seemed unimportant before now raised questions. "You never really talk about your work," she said, pulling the sheet around herself. "This hospitality management job keeps you busy." A shadow crossed Jude's face. "It's complicated. Family business." "Must be some business," she said lightly. "Those aren't exactly department store clothes." Jude paused, and for a moment Zariah thought he might say more. Instead, he smiled and kissed her again. "I just like nice things. Is that a crime?" The subject was dropped, but not forgotten. Over the following weeks, Zariah noticed other inconsistencies. Jude never invited her to his place. He was vague about his friends. Sometimes he'd need to cancel plans suddenly due to work emergencies. Despite these concerns, Zariah found herself falling deeper. Jude had brought something into her life she hadn't realized was missing. Not just romance, but a sense that she mattered as a person, not just as Marcus's guardian or as a waitress. Even Marcus had warmed to him after Jude helped with his science fair project. The three of them had spent a Saturday afternoon turning the small apartment into a workshop, Jude's expensive clothes replaced by jeans and a t-shirt as he helped build a working model of the solar system. "He's different than I expected," Marcus said that night after Jude left. "How so?" Zariah asked, curious about her brother's perception. Marcus shrugged. "He doesn't act rich." The observation struck Zariah as odd. "What makes you think he's rich?" "His shoes, his car, the way he talks sometimes," Marcus said with the matter-of-fact observation of a teenager. "But he's cool. He doesn't talk down to me." The conversation left Zariah unsettled. She'd noticed the same things, but hearing them from Marcus made them impossible to ignore. At the diner the next day, Tanya found her distracted. "Earth to Zariah," Tanya said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You've been refilling that same sugar container for 5 minutes." "Sorry," Zariah mumbled. "Just thinking." "About Loverboy?" Tanya wiggled her eyebrows suggestively, things still hot and heavy. Despite her concerns, Zariah couldn't help smiling. "It's good. He's good. But," Tanya prompted, knowing her friend well enough to hear the unspoken doubt. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like he's not telling me everything about his job, his family." "Men always have secrets," Tanya said dismissively. "As long as he treats you right, does it matter?" Before Zariah could answer, the bell above the diner door rang, and a group of well-dressed women entered. They were clearly not regular customers, their designer clothes and perfect hair making them stand out in the modest establishment. "I'll take this one," Tanya said, grabbing menus. "You finish those sugar containers." Zariah continued her work, half listening to the women's conversation as they settled at a nearby table. "The Eastern Charity Ball is this weekend," one woman was saying. "Elaine has outdone herself this year." "Of course she has," another replied. "She's desperate to match Jude with Alexandra Bennett before he finds another distraction." At the mention of Jude's name, Zariah's hands stilled. She told herself it was a coincidence. Jude wasn't an uncommon name. "Well, the photos in Charleston Living seem to suggest he's already quite cozy with Alexandra," a third woman added. "Though Elaine would never confirm anything until a ring is on her finger. I heard he's been scarce lately," the first woman said, lowering her voice. "Richard says he's hardly been in the office, and Elaine is beside herself trying to cover for him with the board." "Here are your menus, ladies," Tanya said, interrupting them. Our special today is the crab cake sandwich. Zariah forced herself to continue working, trying to ignore the conversation. But when one of the women opened a glossy magazine, Zariah caught a glimpse of the cover and froze. There, in a tuxedo that highlighted his broad shoulders, was Jude, her Jude. His arm was around a stunning blonde woman in an evening gown. The headline read, "The Eastern Legacy, Love and Lies?" Time seemed to stop. Zariah's hands trembled as she approached Tanya by the coffee machine. "I need to see that magazine," she whispered urgently. Tanya glanced at the table, then back at Zariah's pale face. "What's wrong? Please, just find a way." With the practiced charm of an experienced waitress, Tanya returned to the table. "Ladies, could I interest you in our fresh-baked muffins while you decide? They just came out of the oven." While the women were distracted by Tanya's sales pitch, Zariah moved quickly, pretending to wipe down a nearby table. She caught a better look at the magazine. The article title inside read, "Jude Easton, Hotel Heir finally ready to settle down." The room seemed to tilt. Jude Easton, heir to Easton Hotels, one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the South. The man she'd been sleeping with, sharing her secrets with, falling in love with, was not just rich. He was Charleston royalty, and he'd been lying to her from the beginning. Somehow, Zariah made it through her shift. She moved mechanically, taking orders, serving food, her mind racing with questions. Why had he lied? Was she some kind of game to him? A charity case? That evening, when Jude texted asking to see her, Zariah nearly ignored it. But anger and hurt drove her to respond with a simple, "Meet me at Harbor Park, 8 p.m. The park where they'd walked on their second date was quiet that evening. Zariah sat on a bench overlooking the water, the magazine she'd bought on her way home clutched in her hands. Jude arrived right on time, his smile fading when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, moving to sit beside her. Wordlessly, Zariah handed him the magazine. Jude's face drained of color as he saw the cover photo of himself with Alexandra Bennett. "I can explain," he began. "Explain what?" Zariah's voice was cold. "That you're Jude Easton, heir to a hotel empire. That you've been lying to me since the day we met. Or maybe you want to explain why you're in a tuxedo with your arm around another woman." Jude ran a hand through his hair, his distress evident. "That photo is from months ago, a charity event. Alexandra is the daughter of my mother's friend. There's nothing between us. That's what you focus on." Zariah stood up, needing distance between them. "Not the fact that you've been pretending to be someone you're not this whole time?" "I never pretended to be someone I'm not," Jude protested. "I just didn't tell you everything about my family. You told me you worked in hospitality management." Zariah laughed bitterly. "That's like saying the ocean is a body of water. You own hotels, Jude, luxury resorts." "Technically, my family owns them," he said, then winced at how it sounded. "That's not the point. I wanted you to know me, the real me, not the Eastern name." "The real you?" Zariah's voice rose. "The real you lied to my face every day for weeks. The real you let me invite you into my home, my bed, my life, while keeping yours completely off limits." "It wasn't like that." Jude stood too, reaching for her. Zariah stepped back. "I was going to tell you. I needed to know you cared about me, not what I could give you." The implication hit Zariah like a slap. "You thought I'd only want you for your money. Is that what this was? Some test to see if the poor waitress was a gold digger?" "No." Jude looked genuinely horrified. "That's not it at all. You don't understand what my life is like. People always want something from me. My name opens doors, but it also puts a target on my back." "Poor little rich boy," Zariah said coldly. "It must be so hard having too much of everything." "That's not fair." Jude's voice hardened. "You don't know what my family is like. The expectations, the pressure." "You're right, I don't know," Zariah said, "because you never told me. You know everything about me, my struggles, my dreams, my fears. I trusted you completely while you kept this massive part of yourself hidden." They stood in silence, the gulf between them suddenly vast. In the distance, a ship's horn sounded, mournful in the night air. "I'm sorry," Jude finally said, his voice quiet. "I was afraid of losing you." "You didn't trust me enough to give me the choice," Zariah replied, tears threatening. "And now you've lost me anyway." "Zariah, please!" Jude stepped forward again. "What I feel for you is real, more real than anything in my life." For a moment, looking into his eyes, Zariah almost wavered, but then she remembered the magazine, the blonde woman, the life he'd kept hidden from her. "I can't do this," she said, backing away. "I won't be another one of your secrets, Jude. Or should I call you Mr. Easton now?" Before he could respond, she turned and walked away, Her vision blurred by tears she refused to let fall until she was safely in her car. The next morning, Zariah called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, ignoring the constant buzzing of her phone as Jude tried to reach her. Marcus found her there when he got home from school, still in her pajamas, eyes red from crying. "What happened?" he asked, his teenage bravado dropping away at the sight of his strong sister so broken. "It's nothing," Zariah said automatically. "Just not feeling well." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. "Is it Jude? Did he hurt you?" The simple question broke something in Zariah, and the tears she'd been fighting all day spilled over. Between sobs, she told Marcus everything, who Jude really was, the lies, the confrontation. To her surprise, Marcus didn't immediately take her side. "Maybe he was scared," he said thoughtfully. "People lie when they're scared." "That doesn't make it right," Zariah said, wiping her eyes. "No," Marcus agreed, "but maybe it makes it understandable." His maturity surprised her. "When did you get so wise?" Marcus shrugged. "I liked him. He seemed to really care about you, the way he looked at you." "I thought he did," Zariah said softly. "But how can I trust anything now?" After Marcus went to do his homework, Zariah finally checked her phone. 23 missed calls and a dozen text messages from Jude. The latest one simply said, "Please let me explain. Not for me, for us." She almost called him then. Almost. Instead, she deleted his number and took a long, hot shower, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands on her skin. 3 days passed. Zariah returned to work, pasting on a smile for customers while feeling hollow inside. Tanya hovered nearby, concerned, but knowing better than to push. On the 4th day, a delivery arrived at the diner, a simple bouquet of daisies, Zariah's favorite. The card read only, "I miss your smile, Jay." Zariah placed them in the break room, refusing to take them home despite Tanya's encouragement. A week after their confrontation, Zariah was walking Marcus to school when a sleek black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down to reveal not Jude, but an elegant older woman with silver-streaked dark hair and Jude's eyes. "Ms. Moore," the woman's voice was cultured, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I'm Elaine Easton. I believe we need to talk." Zariah's stomach clenched. "Marcus, go ahead to school. I'll call you later." "But," her brother began to protest. "Now please," Zariah said firmly. Once Marcus was out of earshot, Zariah faced Jude's mother. "Mrs. Easton, I have nothing to say to you." "Perhaps not," Elaine agreed smoothly, "but I have something to say to you. Please, get in. I promise I'll have you wherever you need to be afterward." Against her better judgment, Zariah slid into the back seat beside Elaine. The car pulled away from the curb, its interior smelling of expensive leather and Elaine's subtle perfume. "My son is quite taken with you," Elaine said, studying Zariah with cool appraisal. "He's been quite impossible since your disagreement." "I'm sorry to hear that," Zariah replied stiffly. "But that's between Jude and me, is it?" Elaine raised a perfectly manicured eyebrow. "The Easton name represents generations of hard work and reputation. What affects my son affects our family and our business." "I'm not affecting anything," Zariah said. "I haven't spoken to Jude in a week. Yet he's cancelled meetings, missed a critical charity event, and is talking about re-evaluating his role in the company." Elaine's voice remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened. "All since meeting you." Zariah felt her temper rising. "With all due respect, Mrs. Easton, your son is an adult who makes his own choices." "Indeed he is," Elaine agreed, "and normally I would let him make his own mistakes. But this," she gestured vaguely at Zariah, "this infatuation seems particularly destructive." "What exactly are you saying?" Zariah asked, though she already knew. Elaine opened her handbag and removed a checkbook. "I'm saying that everyone has a price, Ms. Moore. What's yours?" The insult stung like a physical blow. "You think you can pay me to stay away from your son? I think I can compensate you for any inconvenience this situation has caused." Elaine's smile was shark-like. "Jude mentioned you wish to return to nursing school. Perhaps a full scholarship would interest you?" For a brief, shameful moment, Zariah imagined it. The freedom from financial worry, the chance to finish her degree, to provide better for Marcus. Then disgust washed over her. "Stop the car," she said quietly. "Be reasonable, Ms. Moore," Elaine continued. "You and my son come from different worlds. This was never going to—" "Stop the car," Zariah's voice rose. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, and the car pulled to the curb. Zariah reached for the door handle, then turned back to Elaine. You don't know anything about me or what I want, and if Jude is anything like you, then you're right. We have nothing in common. She stepped out onto the sidewalk, slamming the door behind her. Through the window, she saw Elaine's composed mask slip for just a moment, revealing surprise and perhaps a hint of respect. As the car pulled away, Zariah's phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, but she knew who it was. I heard my mother wants to meet you. Whatever she says, please remember, I love you. I've never said that to anyone before and meant it. J. Love. The word she'd been afraid to even think glowed on her screen. But was it enough? Could love bridge the gap between their worlds? And could she ever trust him again after so many lies? As Zariah stood on the sidewalk, torn between her head and her heart, she didn't notice the woman watching her from across the street. A woman who had once worked as a housekeeper for the Easton family, who had known Zariah's mother, and who held secrets that would soon change everything. The following week passed in a blur for Zariah. She worked double shifts at the diner, helped Marcus with a history project, and tried desperately not to think about Jude or his mother's insulting offer. But Jude wasn't making it easy to forget him. Though he'd stopped calling, evidence of his presence appeared everywhere. A delivery of groceries arrived at her apartment with a note. I remember you mentioned being too busy to shop. No strings attached. J. A bookstore gift card for Marcus came next, followed by a letter apologizing again, explaining his fears, and asking only for a chance to talk. Zariah left them all unopened on her kitchen counter. You're being stubborn, Tanya said when she came over and saw the pile. The man is clearly sorry. Sorry doesn't fix lying, Zariah replied, aggressively washing dishes. He let me believe he was just a regular guy while he's actually Charleston royalty. And what exactly did you expect him to say on that first date? Tanya challenged. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm filthy rich. You would have run for the hills. Zariah turned, soapy water dripping from her hands. That's not fair. I wouldn't have judged him for being wealthy. No, then why are you judging him now? I'm not judging him for being rich. I'm judging him for lying about it. Tanya sighed, leaning against the counter. Look, I get it. He should have told you sooner. But girl, that man loves you. Even I can see it, and I've only met him twice. Love based on lies isn't real, Zariah said stubbornly. Maybe not, Tanya conceded. But sometimes people lie because they're scared, not because they're trying to hurt you. The words echoed what Marcus had said, making Zariah pause. Was she being too harsh, too unforgiving? But then she remembered Elaine Easton's cold eyes, the checkbook, the casual way she'd tried to buy Zariah off like she was nothing. It doesn't matter anyway, Zariah said, turning back to the dishes. His mother made it very clear I don't belong in their world. Since when do you let anyone tell you where you belong? Tanya asked quietly. Before Zariah could answer, a knock at the door interrupted them. Tanya went to answer it, returning with a confused expression. It's an older woman. Says her name is Rose Martinez and she knew your mother. Zariah dried her hands, trying to place the name. It sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't remember where she'd heard it. In the doorway stood a petite Hispanic woman in her 60s, her dark hair streaked with gray, her eyes kind but serious. Zariah, the woman said softly, you look so much like her. Like who? Zariah asked, though she knew the answer. Your mother, Diana. Rose's smile was sad. I've been watching you for a while now, trying to decide if I should come forward. But after seeing you with Elaine Easton yesterday, I knew it was time. Zariah exchanged a glance with Tanya, who nodded and grabbed her purse. I'll call you later, Tanya said, squeezing Zariah's arm as she left. Once they were alone, Zariah gestured for Rose to sit at the small kitchen table. How did you know my mother? Rose settled into a chair, her movements careful, deliberate. I worked for the Easton family for nearly 30 years. I was their head housekeeper until I retired 5 years ago. Zariah felt her stomach drop. If Jude sent you... No, Rose interrupted gently. Jude doesn't know I'm here. In fact, he doesn't know anything about this. Neither does Elaine. About what? Zariah asked, growing more confused. Rose reached into her handbag and pulled out a faded photograph. This was taken at the Easton summer house in Hilton Head about 27 years ago. Zariah took the photo, and her breath caught. There was her mother, young and beautiful, standing on a beach. Next to her was a handsome man about her age, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling radiantly at the camera. Who is this? Zariah asked, though something in the man's eyes, warm, kind eyes, already told her the answer. That's William Easton, Jude's father. The world seemed to tilt beneath Zariah. My mother knew Jude's father? Rose's expression was gentle but firm. They didn't just know each other, dear. They were in love. For the next hour, Rose told a story that shattered everything Zariah thought she knew about her family. William Easton, heir to the hotel empire, had fallen in love with Diana, a beautiful young woman who worked as a summer receptionist at one of the Easton hotels. They were inseparable that summer, Rose said. William was supposed to marry Elaine. It was an arranged match, beneficial to both families, but he was ready to throw it all away for your mother. What happened? Zariah asked, still staring at the photo, at her mother's happy face. Elaine found out. She went to William's father, who threatened to disinherit William if he didn't end things with Diana. Rose sighed. Your mother was already pregnant when William broke things off. Zariah's head snapped up. Pregnant? Rose nodded slowly. With you, Zariah. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Are you saying William Easton was my father? Yes, Rose said simply. William was devastated when he ended things with Diana. He didn't know about the pregnancy. By the time he found out months later, she was already married to James Moore. Zariah remembered the man she'd called father. Kind, loving, but often distant. He died when she was 10 in a construction accident. Had he known? Had her mother told him the truth? A few years later, William and Elaine had Jude, Rose continued. But William never forgot Diana. He would ask me about her sometimes, since I kept in touch with her. When he found out James had died, he started sending money anonymously to help your mother raise you. She never mentioned any mysterious money, Zariah said, trying to process everything. She probably thought it was James's life insurance, Rose suggested. The payment stopped when William died 8 years ago. The timing matched. Around the time her mother had started taking on extra shifts, working herself to exhaustion, the financial strain had gotten worse after that. Does Jude know any of this? Zariah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Rose shook her head. William never told anyone except me. Elaine suspected, I think, which is why she's always been so protective of Jude, why she's so set on him marrying someone from their social circle. Zariah stood abruptly, needing to move. This can't be true. It's like a bad movie. I know it's a shock, Rose said gently, but I have more proof if you need it. Letters, more photos. Why tell me now? After all these years? Rose's expression softened. I promised William I'd look out for you, but from a distance. When your mother died, I nearly came forward, but you seemed to be managing. Then I saw you with Jude, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the past caught up with all of us. Zariah sank back into her chair, mind reeling. Jude and we're half-siblings, Rose confirmed, though neither of you knew it. The nausea that swept through Zariah was immediate and overwhelming. She'd fallen in love with her half-brother, had slept with him. The thought made her physically ill. I need you to go, she said, standing again. I need to think. Rose nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. Here's my number. Call me when you're ready to talk more. After Rose left, Zariah sat in stunned silence, the photograph still in her hands. Everything made sense now. Elaine's hatred of her, the strange connection she'd felt with Jude from the beginning. It hadn't been romance. It had been blood. When Marcus came home from basketball practice, he found Zariah still at the table, tears streaming down her face. What happened? He asked, alarmed. Is it Jude again? Sit down, Zariah said shakily. There's something I need to tell you. After explaining everything Rose had told her, Zariah watched her brother's face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally thoughtful acceptance. So Jude is your brother, Marcus said slowly. That's, wow, half-brother, Zariah corrected automatically, though it hardly mattered. Does he know yet? No, and I don't know how to tell him. The thought of facing Jude again, of explaining this bizarre twist, made Zariah's stomach churn. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You know what this means, right? If this William guy was your real dad, then you're an Easton too. You could be rich. Marcus, Zariah was shocked by his reaction. That's not the point, and I don't want their money. Why not? They owe you, Marcus argued. All these years we've been struggling while they've been living in mansions. That's not fair. His words struck a chord, but Zariah pushed the thought away. I need to figure out how to tell Jude first. This will destroy him. The following morning, Zariah called in sick again. She couldn't face people, couldn't pretend everything was normal when her entire world had been turned upside down. She spent the day researching William Easton, finding articles about his business success, his marriage to Elaine, his tragic death from a heart attack. In every photo, she searched for similarities to herself, wondering how she'd never noticed before. That evening, her phone rang with an unknown number. Thinking it might be Rose with more information, she answered, "Zariah." Jude's voice sent a shock through her system. "Please don't hang up." She should have ended the call immediately. Instead, she found herself asking, "How did you get this number?" "I blocked you." "Tanya gave it to me," he admitted. "She said you were going through something difficult and might need a friend." Anger flared briefly at her friend's betrayal, then faded. Tanya didn't know the whole story. "I can't talk to you right now," Zariah said, her voice tight. "I understand you're still angry," Jude said quickly, "but I need to see you. There's something important I need to tell you, face to face." Panic gripped her. Did he know? Had Rose gone to him too? "Whatever it is, it can wait," she said. "It can't." His voice grew urgent. "Please, Zariah, 1 hour of your time. That's all I'm asking. Then if you still want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that." Against her better judgment, Zariah agreed to meet him at a coffee shop the next morning. She spent the night tossing and turning, rehearsing how to tell him the impossible truth. The coffee shop was crowded when she arrived. Jude was already there, in a corner booth, dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him. Jeans, a simple button-down shirt, his hair slightly disheveled, as if he too had passed a sleepless night. When he saw her, his face lit up with such hope that Zariah nearly turned and fled. This was a mistake. She couldn't do this. But then he was standing, pulling out a chair for her, his eyes searching her face with genuine concern. "You look exhausted," he said softly as she sat. "Are you okay?" "No," she answered honestly. "I'm not." Before he could respond, a waitress appeared to take their order. Once she left, an awkward silence fell between them. "You said you had something to tell me," Zariah finally said, unable to bear the tension. Jude took a deep breath. "Yes, several things actually." He reached across the table as if to take her hand, then seemed to think better of it. "First, I want to apologize again, not just for not telling you who I was, but for letting you find out the way you did. You deserved better." "Yes, I did," Zariah agreed, but without the anger she'd felt before. It seemed trivial now, in light of what she knew. "Second," Jude continued, "I want you to know I've told my mother to back off. I found out about her proposition to you. It was unforgivable." Zariah almost laughed at the irony. If Elaine knew the truth, she'd be offering a lot more than tuition to keep Zariah away from her son. "And third," Jude's voice grew softer, more intense, "I've made some decisions about my life, big ones." Something in his tone made Zariah uneasy. "What decisions?" "I've stepped down from my position at Eastern Hotels." Jude's words came in a rush now. "I'm starting my own business, a small boutique hotel. Nothing fancy, just something that's mine, not my family's." Zariah stared at him, stunned. "You left your family business? Why?" "Because it was never what I wanted," Jude explained, a new lightness in his expression. "I've always felt trapped by the Eastern name, the expectations. Meeting you, loving you, it made me realize I needed to live my own life." The word loving hung between them. Zariah flinched. "There's something you don't know," she began, her throat tight. "I know I hurt you," Jude interrupted. "I know trust is earned, not given, but I'm asking for a chance to earn it back, to show you the real me, not Jude Easton, the hotel heir. Just Jude." "You don't understand," Zariah tried again, fighting tears. "We can't—" "I'm not asking for everything right away," he continued earnestly. "Just a fresh start, dinner maybe, or even just coffee like this." "Jude, stop," Zariah finally managed, her voice breaking. "I need to tell you something, and it's going to change everything." The urgency in her tone finally registered. Jude fell silent, concern replacing hope in his eyes. "What is it?" "Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." Zariah took a deep breath, then reached into her purse and placed Rose's photograph on the table between them. "Do you know who this is?" she asked, pointing to the man with his arm around her mother. Jude glanced down and his expression froze. That's my father, William Easton." "And the woman with him?" Jude shook his head slowly. "I don't know. I've never seen her before. That's my mother, Diana. Diana Moore." Confusion crossed Jude's face. "Your mother knew my father. How?" With halting words, Zariah told him everything Rose had shared. As understanding dawned in his eyes, she watched horror replace confusion, then denial, then a devastating acceptance. "That's not possible," he whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Rose has more proof," Zariah said gently. "Letters, more photos." Jude pushed back from the table abruptly, standing up. I need some air." He walked out of the coffee shop without another word, leaving Zariah alone with the photograph and the untouched coffees growing cold between them. Zariah gave him space, not following. What could she say? What comfort could she offer when she was equally devastated? She paid for the coffees and left, walking aimlessly through the streets of Charleston. Her phone remained silent all day. No calls, no texts from Jude. She hadn't expected any. That night, as she helped Marcus with his homework, there was a knock at the door. Zariah opened it to find Elaine Easton standing in the hallway, her perfect composure cracked, her eyes red-rimmed. "What have you done?" Elaine demanded, pushing past Zariah into the apartment. "Jude came home, packed a bag and left without explanation. He's not answering his phone. What did you say to him?" Zariah glanced at Marcus, who was watching wide-eyed from the kitchen table. "Marcus, go to your room, please." Once her brother was gone, Zariah faced Elaine. "I told him the truth you've kept from him his entire life." Elaine's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "I know about my mother and William," Zariah said steadily. "I know William was my father." For perhaps the first time in her life, Elaine Easton was speechless. She sank onto Zariah's worn couch, her designer outfit looking oddly out of place in the modest apartment. "How?" she finally managed. "Rose Martinez told me. She gave me proof, photos, letters." Zariah remained standing, finding strange strength in finally knowing the truth. "You've known all along, haven't you? That's why you tried to buy me off." Elaine's laugh was bitter. "I didn't know who you were when I made that offer. I just saw another gold digger after my son's money." "Then when did you figure it out?" "When I got home after our meeting," Elaine admitted. "Something about your eyes, they're William's eyes. I had you investigated, found out your mother's name was Diana Moore. It wasn't hard to connect the dots after that." "And you didn't think I deserved to know the truth?" Zariah asked, anger rising. "That Jude deserved to know? What good would it have done?" Elaine countered. "The past is past. William is gone. Gone. But not before he sent money to help my mother raise me," Zariah said. "Money that stopped when he died." Something like shame flickered across Elaine's face. "I found the payments in his private accounts after he died. I stopped them. I thought that chapter was closed." "It was never closed," Zariah said quietly. "And now Jude knows and he's gone." Elaine stood suddenly, her composure returning. "You had no right to tell him. He had every right to know," Zariah countered. "Just as I did. Do you have any idea what this will do to our family? To the company?" Elaine's voice rose. "If this gets out, I don't care about your company or your reputation," Zariah interrupted. "I care about Jude. And right now he's out there somewhere alone, trying to process that his whole life has been a lie." Elaine stared at her for a long moment, then seemed to deflate. "You really do care about him, don't you? Not his name or his money." "I love him," Zariah said simply, then winced at how it sounded now. "I did anyway before I knew the truth. And now? Now I don't know what to feel. He's my brother. Half-brother," Elaine corrected, echoing Zariah's words to Marcus earlier. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. These two women from different worlds, connected by a man neither of them had truly known. "If he contacts you," Elaine finally said, moving toward the door, "please let me know he's safe." It was the closest thing to vulnerability Zariah had seen from the woman. "I will." After Elaine left, Zariah sat alone in the living room, the weight of the day pressing down on her. Everything had changed, and yet nothing was resolved. Jude was gone. The truth was out. But what came next? Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number again. "I'm sorry I walked out. I needed time to think. Can we talk tomorrow? There's something in my father's study I need to show you. Jude." Zariah stared at the message, her heart pounding. What had Jude found? And would it bring them closure or only more pain? As she typed yes, Zariah couldn't know that across town, in the grand Eastern mansion, Jude was sitting in his father's study, a hidden safe open before him, reading a letter addressed to "my daughter Zariah" in William Easton's handwriting, a letter that would change everything once again. The Easton mansion loomed before Zariah, like something from another world. 3 stories of perfect white columns and manicured gardens. It represented everything she wasn't supposed to have: wealth, privilege, security. Now she stood at its ornate front door, her hand trembling as she rang the bell. A uniformed maid answered, eyeing Zariah's simple jeans and sweater with barely concealed suspicion. "I'm here to see Jude," Zariah said, lifting her chin slightly. "He's expecting me." "Of course, Ms. Moore," the maid replied, surprising Zariah by knowing her name. "Mr. Easton is in his father's study. Please follow me." The interior of the mansion was even more impressive. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that Zariah guessed cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Each step deeper into the house felt like a step further from her reality. The maid led her through a corridor lined with family portraits. Zariah couldn't help searching the faces for resemblances to herself, stopping briefly before a painting of William Easton. The man from Rose's photograph looked older here, more serious in his expensive suit, but his eyes, her eyes, remained the same. "This way, miss," the maid prompted, pulling Zariah from her thoughts. At the end of the hall, massive double doors opened into a wood-paneled study. Jude sat behind an ornate desk, looking exhausted but composed. When he saw Zariah, he stood, uncertainty in his expression. "Thank you for coming," he said formally, as if they were strangers. In some ways, Zariah realized they were. "You said you found something," she replied, remaining near the door. The intimacy they'd once shared felt inappropriate now, tainted by the truth of their connection. Jude nodded, gesturing to a chair across from the desk. "Please sit." As Zariah settled into the leather chair, Jude returned to his seat, his hands resting on a sealed envelope. "After I left you yesterday, I came here," he began, his voice steady but strained. "I needed to see if there was any evidence, anything that might disprove what you told me." "And?" Zariah asked, though she already knew the answer. "And I found this." Jude tapped the envelope. "My father had a hidden safe behind that painting." He nodded toward a landscape on the wall. "The combination was my birthday. Inside were documents, photos, and this letter, addressed to you." He slid the envelope across the desk. Zariah stared at it, her name written in an unfamiliar hand. "Have you read it?" she asked. "No." Jude shook his head. "It's yours. Your choice whether to share it." With trembling fingers, Zariah opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "My dear Zariah, if you're reading this, then I am gone, and the truth has finally found its way to you. I've written this letter 100 times in my mind over the years, but putting it on paper makes it real in a way I've been too cowardly to face. I am your father. So I fell in love with your mother, Diana, during a summer that remains the happiest time of my life. She was everything Elaine wasn't. Warm, genuine, full of dreams that had nothing to do with social status or family names. I was prepared to give up everything for her, for the life we might have built together. But I was weak. When my father threatened to cut me off, to destroy Diana's reputation, I chose security over love. It's a choice I've regretted every day since. By the time I learned Diana was pregnant with you, she had married James Moore, a good man who loved her enough to claim you as his own. I told myself you were better off without the complications my name would bring, but the truth is, I was a coward. I've watched you from a distance. I know about your excellent grades in school, your acceptance to nursing college, your kindness to others. I know you have your mother's heart and, my legal advisor tells me, my eyes. The money I've sent over the years was a poor substitute for the father I should have been. I've set up a trust in your name that Elaine knows nothing about. My attorney, Samuel Winters, has the details. It isn't enough to make up for my absence, but perhaps it can give you the security I failed to provide in life. There is one more truth you should know. After you were born, your mother and I met once more. She was happily married, and I was trapped in a marriage of convenience with Elaine. We agreed to go our separate ways permanently, for your sake and for the child Elaine was expecting, my son Jude. Jude knows nothing of this. Elaine made me promise never to tell him, fearing it would diminish his birthright somehow. But he is your brother, Zariah. Half of his blood is the same as yours. Perhaps someday when you both are grown you might find each other. I hope you do. You both deserve to know your full family. I'm sorry for the choices I made. Sorry I wasn't brave enough to be your father. Know that I have loved you silently and from afar, every day of your life, with deepest regret and endless love, William Easton. Tears blurred Zariah's vision as she finished reading. The letter confirmed everything Rose had told her, but hearing it in William's own words made it undeniably real. She had a father who had loved her, even if from a distance. She had a birthright she'd never known about. And she had a brother sitting across from her, watching her with concern. "Are you okay?" Jude asked softly. Zariah wiped her eyes and handed him the letter. "You should read this." Silence fell as Jude read his father's words. His expression shifted from curiosity to shock to a quiet understanding. When he finished, he carefully folded the letter and returned it to Zariah. "So it's true," he said, his voice flat. "We're siblings. Half-siblings," Zariah corrected automatically. A ghost of a smile touched Jude's lips. You sound like my mother." "God, don't say that," Zariah said, and suddenly they were both laughing. A strange, slightly hysterical release of tension. When the laughter subsided, Jude's expression grew serious again. "He mentions a trust fund for you. We should contact this attorney, Samuel Winters." "I don't want the money," Zariah said immediately. "It's yours," Jude countered. "He meant for you to have it. I've managed this long without it." "Barely," Jude said gently. "Working double shifts, putting off your education. Marcus deserves better. You deserve better." The mention of her brother sobered Zariah. "Marcus, this affects him too. He's not even related to your father, but this changes his life as well." "Our father," Jude corrected. "And yes, it does, but maybe for the better?" Before Zariah could respond, the study door opened and Elaine entered. She froze when she saw Zariah, her eyes darting between them. "What is she doing here?" she demanded. Jude stood, his posture straight, confrontational. "She's here because I invited her, because she's my sister." Elaine flinched at the word sister. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," Jude replied coldly. "I found Father's letter to Zariah. I know everything." "You went through his private safe?" Elaine's voice rose. "That was locked for a reason." "Yes, to hide your lies," Jude shot back. "To hide the fact that I have a sister, that Father had another child he never acknowledged." "He was protecting you," Elaine insisted. "Protecting the family name." "No," Jude shook his head. "He was protecting you, your pride, your social standing." Zariah stood, uncomfortable witnessing this family confrontation. "I should go." "No," Jude and Elaine said simultaneously, then glared at each other. "This concerns you too," Jude told Zariah. "You're an Easton." "I'm a Moore," Zariah corrected firmly. "My father, the man who raised me, was James Moore." "But William's blood runs in your veins," Elaine said unexpectedly, "and his financial legacy belongs partly to you, whether I like it or not." Zariah and Jude both stared at Elaine in surprise. "What?" Elaine asked defensively. "I'm not a monster. I didn't know about you when Diana was pregnant, or I would have handled things differently." "Handled things?" Zariah repeated. "Like you tried to handle me with your checkbook." Elaine had the grace to look ashamed. "That was misguided. I apologize." The apology, clearly difficult for Elaine, shocked Zariah into silence. "The fact remains," Elaine continued, regaining her composure, "that you are William's daughter. Legally, you may have claimed to part of his estate." "I don't want to claim anything," Zariah said. "I came here for answers, not money." "Nevertheless," Elaine pressed, "we should discuss this with our attorneys, quietly, of course." "Of course," Zariah said dryly. "Wouldn't want to tarnish the precious Easton name." "Actually," Jude interrupted, "I don't care who knows." He turned to his mother. "I've spent my entire life living by your rules, protecting the family image. I'm done with that." "What are you saying?" Elaine asked warily. "I'm saying Zariah deserves to be acknowledged, publicly, as William Easton's daughter." "That's not necessary," Zariah began, but Jude cut her off. "Yes, it is. You deserve to be recognized, to claim your inheritance, to finish your education without working yourself to exhaustion." The determination in his voice touched something in Zariah. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider what accepting her Easton heritage might mean. Security for herself and Marcus, the chance to finish her nursing degree, a future not constrained by constant financial worry. "This will cause a scandal," Elaine warned. "I don't care," Jude replied. "It's time for the truth." 3 days later, Zariah sat in the offices of Winters and Associates, listening as Samuel Winters, an elderly attorney with kind eyes, explained the details of the trust William Easton had established for her. "The principal amount is $5 million, he said matter-of-factly. "With the accumulated interest over the past 26 years, it's now valued at approximately $8.3 million. Zariah felt lightheaded. "Million?" "Yes, Ms. Moore. Or should I say, Ms. Easton. Moore is fine," she said automatically. The amount was incomprehensible, more money than she could spend in a lifetime. "Additionally," Winters continued, "there is a provision for educational expenses, your own and any dependents. That would include your brother, Marcus." Jude, who had insisted on accompanying her to the meeting, squeezed her hand. "You can finish nursing school. Marcus can go to any college he wants." "I don't know what to say," Zariah whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Winters smiled. "Just sign these documents and the funds will be transferred to accounts in your name." Later, as they walked along the harbor where they'd had their first date, Zariah tried to process everything that had happened. "It doesn't feel real," she admitted. Yesterday I was worried about making rent. Today I'm a millionaire. You were always an Easton, Jude said. The money just makes it official. I'm still not changing my name, Zariah insisted. James Moore raised me. He's my father in every way that matters. I understand, Jude nodded. But you're still my sister. The word hung between them, a reminder of what they had almost been to each other, and what they had become instead. A half-sister, Zariah corrected with a small smile. Whatever the fraction, we're family, Jude said seriously, and I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me. I'd like that, Zariah admitted. Marcus would too. He already thinks you're the coolest person ever. Smart kid, Jude grinned. Must run in the family. As they reached the end of the pier, Zariah thought about how much had changed in such a short time. The romance between them was gone, transformed into something different but no less meaningful. What will you do now? She asked. You mentioned leaving the family business. I still want to, Jude confirmed, but now I'm thinking bigger. The Eastern hotels have always catered to the wealthy. I want to create affordable quality accommodations for working families, students, people who deserve a beautiful place to stay without the luxury price tag. Sounds like a good idea, Zariah said. Need a partner? Jude looked at her in surprise. You want to go into the hotel business? Not exactly, Zariah laughed, but I do have this sudden windfall I need to invest, and I like the idea of helping people. Maybe a chain of hotels with health clinics attached, affordable care for travelers and locals. Eastern Moore Hospitality and Health, Jude mused. It has a nice ring to it. We could start in neighborhoods that need it most, Zariah continued, warming to the idea. Create jobs. Provide services. Look at you thinking like a businesswoman already, Jude teased. I've always been good with money, Zariah shrugged. Had to be, when there wasn't much of it. The sun was setting over the water, painting the harbor in gold and pink. It reminded Zariah of that first night with Jude, when everything had seemed possible between them, just not in the way she'd imagined. We should get back, she said finally. I promised Marcus I'd help him with a school project tonight. Want company? Jude asked. I'm pretty good at school projects. Sure, Zariah smiled. He'd like that. As they walked back toward Zariah's apartment, which she was already planning to upgrade to something larger with a proper bedroom for Marcus, Jude's phone rang. It's Mother, he said, glancing at the screen. I should take this. While he spoke with Elaine, Zariah's thoughts drifted to the future. Nursing school, a better home, security for Marcus, a family connection she'd never expected. Life had changed dramatically, but perhaps for the better. That was interesting, Jude said as he ended the call. Mother wants us both to come to dinner tomorrow night. She says she has something important to share. Both of us, Zariah asked skeptically. She hates me. She's trying, Jude said, in her own way. Will you come? Only if I can bring Marcus, Zariah countered. He's family too. Deal. The following evening found Zariah and Marcus dressed in their nicest clothes, with a quick shopping trip for Marcus, who had outgrown his only dress shirt, sitting stiffly in the Eastern Mansion's formal dining room. Elaine presided at the head of the table, still regal and intimidating, but making visible efforts to be welcoming. Marcus, she said, turning her attention to the teenager, who was carefully mimicking Jude's use of the correct fork. Jude tells me you're excellent at mathematics. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied, his voice cracking slightly with nervousness. It's my best subject. Have you considered engineering as a career? The Eastern Foundation funds several scholarships at MIT. MIT? Marcus's eyes widened. For real? For real, Elaine confirmed with a hint of a smile. Something to consider for your future. After dinner, Elaine led them to the library, a grand room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a crackling fireplace. She directed them to seats and took a moment to compose herself. I've been doing some thinking, she began, her voice unusually hesitant. About William, about the past, about the choices we all made. She crossed to a small antique desk and removed a bundle of envelopes tied with faded ribbon. After you left yesterday, Jude, I went through some of William's personal effects that I'd set aside after his death. I found these. She held out the bundle to Zariah. Letters from your mother to William. He kept them all. Zariah took the bundle with trembling hands. My mother wrote to him? I thought they cut off contact. Officially, yes, Elaine said, but they corresponded secretly for years. The last letter is dated just weeks before her death. She never said anything, Zariah whispered, running her fingers over her mother's handwriting on the envelopes. There's something else, Elaine continued. In one of the letters, Diana mentioned a chest she kept in your attic, a cedar chest with her mementos inside. Have you ever seen it? Zariah shook her head. We packed most of Mum's things away after she died. It was too painful to go through them. You might want to look for it, Elaine suggested. I believe there may be things inside that William gave her, things meant for you. Later that night, after a surprisingly pleasant evening that ended with tentative plans for regular family dinners, Zariah and Marcus stood in the small attic of their apartment building. The space was dusty and cramped, filled with boxes they'd stored after their mother's death. There, Marcus said, pointing to a cedar chest tucked under the eaves. Is that it? Together they pulled it out and carefully opened the lid. Inside were neatly organized mementos of Diana Moore's life, photo albums, trinkets, dried flowers pressed between wax paper. At the bottom of the chest was a smaller box with "For Zariah" written on top in their mother's handwriting. Open it, Marcus urged. Inside the box was a collection of treasures, a strand of pearls, a small stack of photographs showing a young Diana with William, and a sealed envelope addressed to Zariah. With shaking hands, she opened it. My dearest Zariah, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you've found your way to the truth I couldn't bring myself to share while I lived. I've started this letter so many times over the years, but could never find the right words to explain the choices I made. William Easton is your biological father. We fell in love during a summer that changed my life forever. When he ended our relationship, I didn't tell him I was pregnant. By the time he found out, I had married James, who knew the truth and loved you as his own from the moment he met you. I don't regret loving William. How could I when it gave me you? But I do regret the secrets. Secrets have a way of living on, of shaping lives from the shadows. There's one more secret I've kept. When you were 10 after James died, William came to see me. He wanted to acknowledge you publicly, to give you his name and all the privileges that came with it. I refused. I was proud, hurt, still angry at his choice years before. I told myself I was protecting you from the complications his world would bring, but perhaps I was wrong. William has a son now, Jude. He's a few years younger than you, your half-brother, though he doesn't know about you. William sends me updates about him sometimes. He seems like a good young man with a kind heart. Perhaps someday you'll meet him. I've enclosed a letter from William's mother, Eleanor Easton, written to me before you were born. She was a different woman than her daughter-in-law Elaine. Kind, understanding. She guessed about the pregnancy before anyone told her. She wanted to help us, but died before she could. Keep it as proof of another Easton who would have loved you had she lived. Forgive me for my secrets, my darling girl. Everything I did out of love for you. Always and forever, Mom. Zariah stared at the letter, a fresh wave of emotion washing over her. Inside the envelope was another, older letter, the paper yellowed with age. It was addressed to her mother from Eleanor Easton, William's mother and Jude's grandmother. What is it? Marcus asked, peering over her shoulder. A letter to Mom from someone in Jude's family, Zariah whispered. From before I was born. As she unfolded the letter, a small key fell into her lap. The letter spoke of acceptance, of plans to help Diana and her unborn child, of a safe deposit box at Charleston First National Bank that would be maintained in perpetuity, containing something precious for Diana's child. We need to find this bank, Marcus said excitedly. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Zariah agreed, carefully placing the letters and key back in the box. As they descended from the attic, Zariah's phone buzzed with a text from Jude. How did the treasure hunt go? Find anything interesting in the attic? Zariah smiled, typing back. You have no idea. How do you feel about a trip to the bank tomorrow? There's one more Easton secret waiting to be discovered. His response came quickly. I'm in. Family adventure. Family adventure, she confirmed, the word family no longer foreign or painful, but full of new meaning and possibility. The next morning, as Zariah prepared to meet Jude, she paused before the small mirror in her hallway. The woman who looked back was changed, still Zariah Moore, daughter of Diana and James, sister to Marcus, but now also an Easton, sister to Jude, heir to a legacy she was only beginning to understand. One night with a mysterious man had changed her life forever, revealing a truth that had been waiting for her all along. Not the fairy tale romance she'd briefly imagined, but something perhaps more meaningful. A family found, a legacy reclaimed, and a future full of possibilities she'd never dared to dream. As she stepped out into the Charleston sunshine, Zariah felt her mother's presence, almost heard her voice on the warm breeze. Secrets have a way of living on, of shaping lives from the shadows. But now, finally, the shadows were gone, and the path ahead was bright with promise.